If you aren't sure what is triggering your migraine attacks, it might be your day-to-day habits. So in this video, I'm gonna break down the different types of triggers that fall under the category of your lifestyle daily habits that could be potentially triggering your migraine attacks, and giving you some ideas for how to avoid them, what you could do to really boost your prevention game and have to not be as reactive to these types of triggers, and more goodies along the way. If you're new here, my name's Casey. I'm talking about all things living with migraine, discussing different prevention strategies, kind of like what we're doing today with thinking about triggers and what we can avoid and manage, and different relief strategies and a lot of other goodies. So if you've got a migraine brain and you want some inspiration, strategies, connection, make sure you subscribe. So lifestyle triggers. This is all about our day-to-day lives. I'm going to keep harping on this, but basically what it comes down to is our migraine brains don't like change. Doesn't like change. It wants to keep things steady. It wants to keep things consistent. So when we think about our lifestyle, it's often the things that are inconsistent or potentially inconsistent that can be triggering for our migraine brains. First, let's talk about stress. This one's a biggie and a little bit more complex because it's actually twofold. So like I said, migraine brains hate change. Changes in stress either increasing our amount of stress or decreasing our amount of stress, and both of these things could potentially be triggers. So to kind of determine whether either of these or both of these kind of fit what your pattern is, kind of think about when your attacks usually fall. And it should be kind of obvious when you think back on it. So if you tend to get symptoms and attacks on very intense days, like if they are days that you have a lot on your calendar, if you have an exam or like a presentation you have to give, or some sort of major commitment, and that's the day that you don't feel so good, that is probably a sign that increases of stress impact you. Now you can also have it where it's the decrease, like I said, and you will see this based on like if it's every weekend when you're not working, if it's when like a project wraps up and you finally get some like downtime, or you go on vacation and once you finally get to like disconnect from all the stressors, those are the times that you get hit with symptoms. That's a sign that decreases of stress impact you. And actually this one is one of my major personal triggers, and it's so frustrating because it's like you finally get a day off and that's when you suffer. So it's very annoying, but it is common, and it's nice when you know what that pattern is so you can find ways to prevent it. Exercise is another type of lifestyle trigger, and exercise is very important for migraine management. It can be a really great boost for our prevention game, but it can come with some risks. So if you aren't very consistent with your exercise routine and all of a sudden you go from like 0 to 100 and you have a very intense workout like out of the blue, that's probably going to set you up for failure. Your body and your brain are going to be like, hey, what's happening? And that might be what is ultimately triggering your attack. And this can come up in pretty obvious ways, like if you're trying to start a fitness journey and you do start intensely exercising and you just like seem to be experiencing more symptoms, like that's obviously a sign. But it can also kind of come up in more subtle ways, like if you go to an amusement park and you're walking around all day and you're usually more sedentary and that seems to impact you. Like obviously there's a lot of potential triggers at an amusement park, but one of them could be like you're just forced to exercise like all day long, walking around sweating, and it's exhausting. So thinking about what might stand out to you, and if any of that resonates with you, can show you that exercise is a trigger. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't exercise. I'll chat more about that in a minute. Now the last like major one that I'm going to chat about here is sleep. Consistent sleeping, so important, and that goes for like the whole shebang. So it's the amount of sleep we're getting, the times that we fall asleep, the times that we wake up. Our brains and our bodies really like that stable routine. You could find that undersleeping or oversleeping or sleeping at different times could be triggering. And this is actually, fun fact, I feel like lifestyle really impacts me personally because it's all like, oh yes, this is me too. Fun fact, sleep is one of the first things I really dialed in on for my migraine prevention journey, because I kind of was doing a little recap of what was going on with my life, and I noticed I was super inconsistent with my sleep routine. So this is one of the things I really buckled down on first off, and saw a major difference with just trying to make my sleeping a little bit more consistent. So the good news for all of our lifestyle related triggers is that this is pretty much in our control most of the time. Like obviously you can't force yourself to go to sleep at the same time every day, but like overall, like you can create a habit of getting to bed every day at the same time. So this is all mostly within our control, and it's really all about making these consistent habits and routines. And this really helps so much with migraine prevention. Even if you don't strongly relate or like resonate with any of these possible triggers, focusing on these things and being very consistent and stable in these areas is going to go such a long way in preventing your migraine attacks otherwise too. Like if you're able to kind of eliminate these potential triggers, it's going to set you up for success and make you less reactive to other triggers. So, I mean, kind of thinking back at the top 3 things I just shared, for your stress management, trying to have a stress management routine, whether that's, you know, some sort of self-care activity like journaling, meditating, something like that. Like these things can keep us a little bit more steady and able to manage our stress a little bit more, you know, efficiently. For exercise, starting slow and being very consistent. I have a husky who's laying right behind me or next to me right now, and she forces me to be very consistent. So it's a great way for me to stay consistent with my exercise and not like go from never doing any exercise to let me run a 5K. Like we're not doing all of that. Like she keeps me very consistent and steady for my prevention. And then sleep, I already shared a little bit about that too. So if you loved it, let me know. I will have some goodies linked for you in the description, and I would love to hear from you in the comments if you resonate with any of these triggers, or if there's, you know, a different type of lifestyle routine type thing that I might have missed. I would love to hear. And definitely do subscribe, because I will be chatting about 2 other types of migraine triggers, and I have 4 total categories of triggers. So today we talked about lifestyle. I already have environmental types of triggers and chatting about that posted. I'll link that below, and we will chat about 2 other types in the future, so subscribe.